Who are you when you're not being who the world told you to be? Not the version your parents expected, not the professional role you play, not even the identity you show your friends, but the raw, untouched core of you, the one you barely let yourself acknowledge because even you are unsure if it's allowed to exist. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But very few people ever claim that privilege. Most live under masks so convincing they forget there's anything beneath them. We're going to explore the four core psychological functions Carl Jung believed shape every person: thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. But more than that, we'll explore what happens when those functions are suppressed, twisted, or demonized. We'll uncover the four hidden archetypes that society fears, the ones most people silence in themselves. If you've ever felt out of place, like you're living someone else's script, this isn't just a video, it's a mirror. And you might not like what you see at first, but you just might walk away knowing yourself in a way you never have before. The lie of fitting in. Think back to your earliest memories when, not just events, but feelings. Were you the kid who asked too many questions, only to be told to stop thinking so much? Or maybe you felt deeply, cried easily, or loved intensely, and were shamed for being too emotional. Maybe you saw things in patterns others missed. Or your body moved before your mind, soaking in the physical world with instinctive ease, only to be called slow, irrational, or not academic. From the moment we're born, we're categorized, tamed, conditioned. It starts with well-meaning parents, continues with rigid school systems, and ends with a society that rewards conformity while pretending to celebrate individuality. We're not raised to discover who we are. We're raised to become who others need us to be. Jung called this process persona formation, the construction of a social mask that helps us survive in the world. But what happens when that mask becomes welded to your face? You forget there was ever anything underneath. And then one day, years later, you catch a strange feeling, like you're walking through your own life half asleep. Relationships feel draining. Decisions feel forced. Even success feels strangely empty. That's a symptom of a soul in hiding. And this brings us to Jung's radical insight. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So ask yourself honestly, is your life shaped by fate? Or is it being steered by a version of yourself that was never truly yours? The invisible prison of repression. Carl Jung believed that every human being operates through a dominant psychological function, a core lens that colors how we think, feel, decide, and relate to the world. It's not just personality, it's your primary mode of experiencing reality. But here's the twist. Most people live their entire lives suppressing their dominant function. Why? Because it wasn't approved of. It wasn't praised. It didn't fit into the environment they were raised in. Imagine a child whose natural gift is deep emotion, someone born with introverted feeling. This child sees the world not as it appears, but through the prism of personal value and inner truth. But if that child is constantly told to stop being so sensitive or punished for acting on their feelings, that function becomes a source of shame. So the child adapts. They learn to perform, to act logical or practical. They create a persona, and with time, they begin to confuse that persona for who they really are. But the repressed function doesn't disappear. It festers in the unconscious. It begins to twist, grow resentful, and eventually, it erupts. This is what Jung called the shadow. Not just the dark parts of our psyche, but the rejected parts, the gifts we were never allowed to express. Now ask yourself, what part of you have you silenced in order to be accepted? That answer holds the key to your real self, the one buried beneath performance. Beyond introvert versus extrovert, today people love labels: introvert, extrovert, empath, thinker, feeler. But most of these labels are flattened, simplified versions of Jung's deeper model. Jung didn't define introverts as shy and extroverts as outgoing. To him, introversion and extroversion were about energy flow, the direction your psychic energy naturally travels. Introverts draw energy from the inner world, ideas, dreams, emotions, reflections. Extroverts draw energy from the outer world, actions, people, experiences, environments. It's not about behavior, it's about orientation. Some of the world's greatest public speakers are introverts. Some of the quietest observers are extroverts. But more important than energy flow is this: how you process information and make decisions. This is where the 4 core psychological functions come into play. 1. Thinking, making sense of the world through logic and structure. 2. Feeling, judging based on value, harmony, and emotional truth. 3. Sensing, grounding in present reality, detail, and physical experience. 4. Intuition, seeing possibilities, patterns, and abstract meaning. Each of these can be expressed either inwardly, introverted, or outwardly, extroverted, forming 8 archetypal ways of being. But we're not taught to explore all of these equally. Society favors some, punishes others. And that brings us to the forbidden archetypes, the ones you're told not to be. The 4 forbidden archetypes. These aren't just personality types. They are lost identities, ways of being that most people repress in order to survive the environment they were raised in. Each of us likely carries one of these forbidden archetypes as a hidden core, buried under years of conditioning. Let's explore them. 1. The inner philosopher, introverted thinking. The inner philosopher lives to understand. This type deconstructs reality, not to win arguments, but to reach truth. They think in systems, models, and principles. They crave independence of thought. But in a world obsessed with action, productivity, and visible results, the philosopher is often dismissed as overthinking. They're told they need to do more and stop living in their heads. So they repress their quiet mind, adopt loud opinions, and fake certainty. But deep inside, they feel disconnected, like they're saying things they don't believe just to belong. If you feel most alive when dissecting ideas in solitude, but have been told your clarity is cold or distant, the inner philosopher may be your repressed core. 2. The heart sovereign, introverted feeling. This type has a deeply personal sense of ethics. They don't follow trends. They don't bend to peer pressure. They act only when it aligns with their internal compass. But society doesn't like quiet conviction. It likes people who follow orders, conform, and keep the peace. So this type is labeled difficult, too intense, or emotionally distant, when in truth, they're profoundly loyal to their truth. If you've been told you're too private or that you care too much, but find that compromising your values feels like soul death, this archetype may be you. And when repressed, this type becomes bitter. They people please while dying inside until they finally explode or vanish from relationships entirely. 3. The mystic seer, introverted intuition. This type lives in deep time. They sense patterns before others see them. Their mind isn't linear, it's symbolic, abstract, and predictive. They often feel like they're watching life from behind a veil, catching glimpses of things others miss. But try explaining that to a school system that wants clear answers, step-by-step processes, and visible effort. So this child learns to distrust their insight. They silence their hunches. They second-guess themselves. As adults, they often feel disoriented, like they're meant for something they can't quite name. When they repress this function, they feel cut off from meaning. They may chase goals that look normal, but feel empty, all while wondering why they're constantly restless. 4. The wild sensor, extroverted sensing. This type doesn't think about the world. They engage it. They're hands-on, alive in the present moment, tuned into their physical senses. They learn by doing, not theorizing. They bring intensity and excitement wherever they go. But the modern world worships long-term plans, academic achievement, and sitting still. So this type is labeled reckless, impulsive, or superficial. They're told to stop chasing experience and settle down. But when this function is repressed, the person becomes lethargic. Their energy dies. They're stuck in their head, overthinking, procrastinating. They forget how to live and start to decay. When you're living a lie. Here's the hardest truth. Most people aren't living their lives. They're living their adaptations. They've become who they had to be to earn love, security, and belonging. But that version is misaligned. It costs energy to maintain. It slowly drains the soul. Jung called this the individuation crisis, the spiritual tension of living as a half-truth. You can feel it when your life looks fine on the outside, but feels dead inside. You can feel it when you say yes out of fear and no out of guilt. When your job looks good but kills your spirit. When your friends admire your persona, but no one sees your truth. That's not depression. That's misalignment. The solution? It's not to change who you are. It's to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. The return to wholeness. Carl Jung's work wasn't about typing people and boxing them in. It was about liberating them. He believed that true psychological growth is not becoming something new, but integrating what has always been there. To know your dominant function is to understand your most effortless state of flow. But to know your repressed function, that's to meet the part of yourself you've most feared. Integration begins when you stop lying to yourself, when you stop mimicking others, when you stop pathologizing your nature and start honoring it. Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just disconnected from your core. Maybe the energy, passion, and clarity you crave are already inside you. They're just waiting to be reclaimed. The awakening. Let me ask you again. Who are you when you're alone? Who are you when no one is watching? What truths keep whispering to you in the quiet moments, only to be silenced the moment the world demands performance? That voice inside you isn't crazy. It's your soul. It's your original blueprint, untouched by fear, undistorted by expectation. Carl Jung believed that facing the shadow, the hidden parts of yourself, was the key to becoming whole. But that journey isn't easy. It will cost you the life you've built under illusion, but in return it will give you the only life worth living, one that's truly yours. So here's your challenge. Find your dominant function. Find what energizes you, what makes you feel alive, what comes so naturally to you that you've mistaken it for unimportant. And just as importantly, find what you've been repressing, the parts of you that were punished, laughed at, or labeled wrong. That's your path, not to fix yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Your archetype isn't a box, it's a compass. Follow it. The life you've been pretending to live is exhausting, but the one that's truly yours, that life will set you free. If this message stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone else might be walking the same silent path, waiting for a sign that they're not alone. Stay grounded, stay thoughtful, stay awake. For more deep dives into philosophy, the human experience, and timeless truths, subscribe and turn on the bell. Wander the void with wonder, question deeply, think freely. Until next time, embrace the silence and let it speak.